Hello and welcome to In the Kitchen with Matt. I am your host, Matt Taylor. Today I'm going to show you how to make homemade caramel apples. Oh yeah, I had a request to make caramel apples, so here we go. That's what we're going to do. They're really easy to do, simple ingredients. If I can do it, you can do it. Before I move on, make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my new videos. Let's get started. Down below in the description box, you'll find the list of the ingredients and their amounts. Begin by taking your apples. You can use whatever apples that you want. I really love using Granny Smith. I love taking a tart apple like a Granny Smith and pairing it with sweet. Just my personal preference, but you can use any of your favorite apples. And I washed them in hot water, just rinsed them really well, and then I dried them. And the reason why you do that, especially here in the United States, is the commercially grown apples that are in your supermarket, a lot of times are covered with a very thin film of wax, and the caramel won't stick to it as easily. Alright, make sure you get the stems out as best as you can, and then you want to take some kind of a treat stick. This was just a bamboo dowel stick, and I just sharpened it a little bit. They do have specific caramel apple sticks that you can buy if you want, or you can also use bamboo skewers if you want. These bamboo skewers already come with a point. They're just thinner. The skewer itself is thinner, so I feel like these thicker ones are a little bit easier to hold. But there's a variety of things that you can use. Now I'm just going to stick this in here about halfway or so. See? And I'm going to do that with the rest of them. So I'm just going to put these here on my pan just so it's easier to transport. And I have it lined with a silicone mat, and that's going to be important later after we dip them. Time to make the caramel. Now you can make it really easy and use the Kraft brand caramels. They're just kind of a store brand caramel. They're individually wrapped, and you can unwrap them and then put them in a pot with a tablespoon of milk or even water. On the back of it, it even actually tells you how to do caramel apples on the back, a quick little recipe. So you can do it that way, or you can make homemade caramel from scratch, which is what I'm going to show you how to do. And so begin with 2 cups of light or dark brown sugar, it doesn't matter. 1/4 cup of butter, and that could be salted or unsalted. If you're using salted, then just half the additional salt. This is 1/2 teaspoon of salt, so you'd use about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then 1.5 cups of heavy whipping cream. And I have it in a 3-quart pot. You want it to be at least a 3-quart pot because it's deep enough. Don't do it in like a skillet because it's going to bubble up while it cooks, and you don't want it to bubble over. And then I have a cup of light corn syrup. So use your spatula to make sure you get it all out of there. Over to the stovetop burner we go. Over here on the stovetop, I have the burner set to in between medium, low, and medium. You could even go up to medium if you wanted to. And we want to keep stirring this until the butter melts. And we want to heat this up to the softball stage, which is right around 235 Fahrenheit. 240, in between 235 and 240 Fahrenheit. Okay, once the butter is melted all the way, then we can stop stirring and we'll just let it sit and do its thing for about 10-15 minutes. And it's going to start to bubble. And what we're going to need to do is on the sides, if you can see, there's some sugar and things that have shown up on the sides, and we don't want that. And so what we want to do is take some water and a little brush, and we'll just lightly brush down that sugar, because if that gets burnt on the sides there, it can ruin the caramel. Sometimes it's not an issue, so just keep an eye on it. All right, we are right there at the softball stage, 235 Fahrenheit, about 113, 112 Celsius. And so what we're going to do is we're going to turn off the heat. I'm going to take the pot off the heat. And now I'm going to pour in 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract and just stir that into the caramel. I'm not going to stir really vigorously. I don't want to add in any unnecessary bubbles into the caramel. And then you let your caramel cool to 190 Fahrenheit. And I just poured it into this bowl. It just makes it easier to dip, but you can certainly just keep it in the pot if you want. And then take an apple and we will go straight down into it. And you can cover the top as much as you want. And then come out. Look at that. Awesome. And then we're going to let some of it drip off. And then I like to scrape off kind of the excess on the bottom. And then you can go up the top of the apple just a little bit. Because gravity is going to let the others drip down a bit. And this way you'll have a little bit less of a pool that forms on the bottom. And then I'm just going to put it right here on a silicone mat on a sheet pan, but parchment paper works really well too. I'm going to do another one. And I will point out, you really want to use a candy thermometer. It's just, the temperatures need to be fairly precise, and it's just really hard to eyeball the temp, like when it's ready to be dipped, or when the caramel is ready to come off the stove, off the heat. And then here is a closer look, again, into the caramel. You're getting the idea. Scrape off some of that bottom. Okay, and then this one, I'm going to come in over here to these nuts. And this is just the mixed nuts that I got. And you could use peanuts, pecans, and I just kind of push them in there. And then there it goes. So then do that with the rest of them. All right, these look fantastic. This recipe, you'll be able to dip probably 8 to 10 apples depending on the size. I only showed 6 here. And then into the refrigerator it goes for about an hour. And then if you have leftover caramel, most likely you'll have some leftover caramel. I'm going to pour it into this baking pan lined with a piece of parchment paper, and I lightly sprayed that parchment paper with some kitchen spray. That's not totally necessary. The parchment paper will be fine as it is. And I'm just going to make some little soft caramels out of this. Get all that caramel out of the bowl. We don't want to waste any of it. It's super yummy, super, super delicious. Okay, and then I'm just going to put this in the fridge for about 30 minutes to an hour. Now I want to run through a few troubleshooting tips for you. This may or may not happen to you, but I want you to notice these apples. The caramel is really thin, just a very thin coating of caramel, and it's pooled up quite a bit at the bottom. This one right here is not too bad of pooling, and that you might have that even with ideal caramel apples. If you notice this one, the nuts have kind of fallen down to the bottom. There's just a little bit of nuts here and there. So there's a variety of things that could have gone wrong, and I did this purposely to show you and illustrate what could happen to you. One, you really need to make sure that your apples were washed in really hot water. Some people use boiling water. If you use boiling water, just dip them in the boiling water for about 15 to 20 seconds and then take them out. And then you're going to dry them really well and then let them come to room temperature or put them in the fridge or the freezer. It really doesn't matter too much between room temperature and cold apples. I've done both ways and they both work fine. Some people prefer the cold apples, some people prefer the room temp. You can try both ways with half the apples and find out which works best for you. But the main key is to get that wax off of the apple. Also, it's really important that you let your caramel cool down to 190 Fahrenheit. That is the ideal dipping temperature. If the caramel is too warm, it's just going to drip off and it's going to be a very thin coating of caramel. So make sure to let it cool down. So it is really kind of important to have a candy thermometer, and I have two different thermometers. I have the one that I used on that pot as well as a digital one, which is really nice that I like. And they're usually only about $10 to $15 on Amazon or at like Walmart, so very decent price. So pick one up and you can use it for all of your candy making needs. And if it's a dual meat thermometer and candy thermometer, you could use it for meat as well. And when they come out of the fridge, they'll look something like this. Notice there's hardly any pooling at all at the bottom. This one just has a little bit. And then just let them sit for about 10 to 15 minutes at room temperature. While you can bite into these, when the caramel softens, your dentist will thank you if you just cut it. And so we'll just cut this down the core here. I just cut it up into some pieces. Plus, it's a lot easier to eat if you just do it this way. Maybe not as fun. And always cut with the caramel side up. That way the caramel doesn't stick to your cutting board. I mean, you can dip them in chocolate if you want. Also, I want to mention, you could take this caramel apple and you could dip it in chocolate. You could do drizzle chocolate on there. You could drizzle like some chocolate and put sprinkles on there. A lot of different designs that you can play with. And then with your leftover caramel, then you'll just want to come in here and you'll just cut it into little pieces if you want. And you may need to, depending on how hard it is, you may need to let it sit at room temperature for a little bit first. There you go. And then you could individually wrap them if you wanted to. There's specific caramel wrappers that you can get, candy wrappers, or you can just leave them like this. You don't want to stack them. They'll kind of stick to each other if you do that. Or you can just leave it flat like this. Totally up to you. And that is how you make homemade caramel apples from scratch and some bonus soft caramel candies. Pretty easy to do, simple ingredients. If I can do it, you can do it. Just keep those troubleshooting tips in mind and you'll be just fine. I'm Matt Taylor. This has been another episode of In the Kitchen with Matt. Thank you for joining me. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or requests, put them down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thumbs up, down the corner, push it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Check out my other videos. Take care. Time for me to dive into this. Oh yeah. Mm.